Reflecting on my life, it's hard to fathom the challenges I faced growing up in a cult. How those experiences propelled me on a relentless quest for reinvention. Was my transformation a desperate attempt to distance myself from my origins? How does one evolve from a teetotal existence for 18 years to indulging in every drug imaginable, LSD and speed, ketamine, ecstasy and cocaine, while injecting steroids like it was second nature? It's baffling, because up until this point, I navigated this tumultuous journey without ever running afoul of the law. Yet in a twist of fate, I found myself like a public enemy number one, unceremoniously dragged from a nightclub by the police as if I was a burning car on a petrol station. You heard the saying, what goes up must come down. What unfolds next feels like a scene from a film, but unlike the glorified narratives of the typical protagonists, my story lacks any embellishment. Whilst many stories celebrate crime and gangsterism, I stand apart. I won't regale you with nearly tales of prison time or close calls. My reality is far more sobering. Yes, I was a character, but nothing compared to the individuals who wove themselves into the fabric of my new life.
And a very dark life at that.
Now let me introduce you to the main characters that coloured my world. First there's the Marine, the one who slipped through the cracks. Was his a lucky escape, or merely jumping from one fire to another? His story ends here. But the others forge on. I've already introduced you to the Fox, the Marine's best mate, the steadhead and the steroid dealer. The Fox fancied himself as a bit of a gangster, but was really just a gentle giant whose ego swelled with this new lifestyle. The Shotgun, the youngest of our crew, was a wild card. He was prone to reckless behaviour that blurred the lines of sanity. I still remember the day he drove us in a minibus while we were all lost in a psychedelic haze on acid, and he was only 16, driving a stolen commercial vehicle in the fast lane at 80 miles per hour on the way to Blackpool. The Bumper earned his nickname for his drunken antics involving those old-fashioned Volvo bumpers. No, the ones that stick out, the big ones. An embarrassing yet laughable trademark of our escapades. When drunk, he would hold himself in until a Volvo bumper was found, and he would empty himself, leaving a perfect Mars bar-shaped turd across its top. What the owner must have thought upon discovering how it got there, and what sort of dog could produce such a feat. Hiawatha, meanwhile, bore the brunt of our playful revenge on a night filled with too much weed and too little judgment. When he got his comeuppance, it was a revenge spliff full of pubes. Watching him suck the colour out of his face, trying to drag this so-called fat blunt deep into his lungs. The smoke of the burning body hair circled above his head, and it was likened to how an Indian would send smoke signals, hence his name. Our crew operated within the nightclub's underbelly, often crossing paths with peripheral characters in this story, like the head doorman. To be clear, this wasn't Mr. Big. And to be honest with you, this is something best left unmentioned, as the infamous Midnight Mass, who had a knack of keeping the police at bay while ensuring our operations ran smoothly until no longer was it in his interests. Were we grassed up that night? We all got arrested. It seems strange because it was all us apart from the head doorman's Oppo. I mean, who knows? There's no need for an introduction here. But even he had someone pulling the strings. The elusive Amsterdam connection. I encountered Mr. Edam only once. A figure far removed from the major players in the drug trade we were engaging in. The second time, one of his minions pulled me to one side on the prison landing where I was spending time. I was cleaning it but he wanted to relay his gratitude on behalf of Mr. Edam for our discretion for not fingering him. Which at first did leave me a little bit confused, until I realised it meant actually it was not grassing him up. I mean, this was a reminder of the intricate web I was entangled in. This is not just a story of crime or glory. It's a cautionary tale of how easily one can be swept into a world that they never intended to join. And as we journey into this rabbit hole, this Alice in Wonderland of a experience, remember this: my story is not about celebrating a life of vice, but rather a stark reminder of the consequences that come when straying too far from normality. I mean, when you're in this world, this underworld, connections just automatically are created and they run deep. And friendships can be a matter of life and death. I mean, picture this. We were entwined with various gangster firms, allies, united by a web of loyalty and friendship. Thanks to Mr. Big, his friends were now ours. But with one chilling exception. The contract killer. This man was the embodiment of fear, and crossing Mr. Big would mean inviting his mate's wrath. But I played it smart, keeping things friendly by occasionally offering this contract killer a free tablet, which helped me maintain a delicate sense of peace. Thankfully, he moved in the shadows and I generally avoided him at all costs. And any encounters with him. Now let's talk about two remarkable figures. There's the dude and the brain surgeon, both educated and sharp. They had somehow woven themselves into the fabric of Liverpool's most fearsome crime families. One night at one party, one of these crime bosses used a set of scissors to separate a man's jaw from his face. A true testament to the brutality of their world and the one I was now experiencing. His sidekick was known as the Hammer, for his penchant for hammers. Was always ready to implement the same kind of violent problem solving. Smashing this hammer into someone else's canister, their head. I vividly remember a moment when we were trying to escape the crowds after the club in the ice cream man's Porsche Carrera 911, my dream car.
Here's Johnny!
Hanging out the passenger window, warning every bystander to clear the way or face the consequences as he waved his hammer in the air. I mean, speaking of the ice cream man, he was a wealthy figure in Liverpool, somewhat of a Klingon. A gangster groupie, for want of a better description, who would provide transport in his Porsche when required. Another major player. This one was a crime lord, infamous for the drips of blood tattooed on the back of a beast tattooed on his arm, marking each victim he dealt with. And let's leave it at that. The dude, he had a torso like Mr. Universe.
Hey man.
But legs that looked like they belonged to a different person. His closest friend, the brain surgeon, was the go-to guy for anyone who'd been shot. He was the on-call doctor to the underworld. His expertise was undeniable. He was literally a brain surgeon by profession, and he had a dark sense of humour that I found oddly amusing, leaving parts of brains on show for others to find, recounting the time he would take a sword to a dead body's head, who had been left to human research, so he could take a chunk of it away with him to study. I mean, how bizarre. His talent for acquiring medical cocaine made him a popular figure. He later became infamous for running one of the largest amphetamine operations in the early 90s, culminating in a 15-year prison sentence. It was all over the news. There's more to come from him later in the story. Then there was Terry the Texan, a nickname that belied his reality, a man who had lost touch with the world around him. We called him a Texan because Texas was from way out west, as was Terry's sense of reality, or lack thereof, made him very unhinged. You knew when he was in a club, as the crowd would part like the Red Sea due to a fight he'd just started. Despite his past as a promising boxer, a tragic stolen car accident as a joyrider left him a shadow of his former self. He literally had a scar that ran from the back of his ear to the other side of his head. It was Frankenstein-like. The last time I saw the Texan was walking across the landing I was cleaning in another wing of Walton Jail. I'll never forget the three amigos, the go-to dealers for South Liverpool's heroin addicts. These were the most paranoid individuals I'd ever encountered, constantly looking over their shoulders, living in fear of the law. Often they would turn up at the most unexpected places, asking me to mind a parcel but don't ask any questions, obviously smack. Or go and pick a car up, usually an Escort Fiesta Sierra, but the Cosworth models. Proper drug dealers' cars, they would change monthly, as they were ringers, otherwise stolen, but parts of other cars put back together as one car to send the police off the scent. I mean, one of them, Mad Roy, earned his nickname from his numerous run-ins with the police, thanks to his love for fast cars and reckless driving. The skills behind the wheel earned him his name, as he would go to chase from the police knowingly they usually couldn't catch him. He later became a vital figure in my journey, and I'll elaborate on that later. Tragedy struck when Davo, one of the acquaintances I gathered along the way, who I often smoked weed with, trying to intervene in an argument to protect a girl in Ireland outside. He was just stopping for a bag of chips. Sadly, he, like the Marine, had managed to escape Liverpool's grasp, but in this moment of heroism, he took a knife in the heart and died in a pool of his own blood. It was a heartbreaking reminder of the risks that come with trying to do the right thing, and sometimes no matter how hard you try, in one way or another, your past will catch you up. I mean, this is the reality of a life lived in the shadows, where every friendship is a potential threat, and every encounter could change everything. Allow me to introduce you to Desi the Bear, a name that strikes fear into the heart of many. He was more than just a local troublemaker, he was a true menace. Growing up just around the corner from my family home, Desi was notorious for his violent antics. At just 8 years of age, he was already knocking out young men. I'll never forget the time he shattered a man's face in a pub fight with a broken pint glass. It was just brutal. I'm only 14 years of age. While he seemed to unleash chaos on anyone who dared cross his path, he left me untouched, partly because he claimed me as a friend, and I was too terrified to decline. And as the years passed, the stories about Desi escalated. By the time I turned 18, he was a hulking man who looked like a doorman, and one fateful day, as I made my way to college, Desi's car pulled up beside me. I knew it was stolen, and he was far too young to be behind its wheel. But when he insisted on giving me a ride, I felt my heart race with fear. That 5-minute ride felt like an eternity. I was engulfed in terror, fearing not only the police who were cracking down on joyriders, but also the grim reality of what could happen to reckless kids like Desi. Just weeks before, a similar crew crashed their stolen car, and all 4 joyriders lost their lives, one of them being decapitated. Once I escaped the confines of that car, I dashed to the nearest toilet. Desperate for a moment of solace, alone I sat on that porcelain throne, trembling, whispering to myself, I don't want to die. Sadly, my fears were not unfounded. Not long after, I learned that Desi succumbed to a heroin overdose, and at just 21 years of age, an addiction that had taken root during a 5-year prison sentence he received for rape. I mean, this is not just a story about a troubled youth. If I could go back and speak to that version of me, I would point out the stark consequences of the choices I was about to make. And the consequences they brought. Don't let fear dictate your decisions. And don't ignore the signs of a life spiraling out of control. We all have the power to choose a different path. Unfortunately, I didn't heed this wake-up call.